Hi everyone. In this video, we'll compare virtual clothing try-on generation in Nano Banana 1 and Nano Banana 2. This video is made for fashion brands and for SMM specialists who create content for brands. These results come from tests inside our tool, UppiWay. We build virtual try-ons directly in Instagram, so you can check it out if you're curious. And this video will be especially useful for our clients who set up virtual try-ons for brands, because this directly affects the quality of the results they get. So what are Nano Banana 1 and Nano Banana 2? These are Google image generation models built into Gemini. They have funny internal names. When you open Gemini, you'll see the option to create an image. If you select the fast model, that's Nano Banana 1. It's also known as Gemini Flash 2.5. If you select the thinking model, that's Nano Banana 2. To keep it simple, open Gemini, fast is Nano Banana 1, thinking is Nano Banana 2. When we set up virtual clothing try-ons in Instagram, we tell users to leave a comment, upload the outfit, and then in the settings we can choose which model will generate the result, Nano Banana 1 or Nano Banana 2. In our interface, this is where we switch between them. And in the Google Gemini interface, you switch it right here. Now let's get to the point. At first glance, the results can look very similar, and sometimes it even feels like both models produce the same image. But, as always, there are nuances. Look, I specifically selected a few different user photos. They're all different. In this column, you see the results from Nano Banana 1. In the center, I placed the clothing image so it's easier to compare left and right. And on the other side, we'll look at Nano Banana 2. Let's begin. The first image is a very good example where the user is clearly visible, full height. And the better the photo the user sends you in Instagram for the try-on, the better the final result will be. But users don't always send good photos. That's exactly why I collected examples like these, where a person is trying on a dress in front of a mirror and then sends a photo of their face. You need to understand where each model performs better. Look at this red dress. In this case, both models actually did a pretty good job. But if you look closely, here the corset details are a bit off. While here, Nano Banana 2 really captured the details much better. It did an excellent job. The second example is also very common. This is when users send a photo where only 3/4 of the body is visible. You don't see the legs, but you see the hips, the torso, and the head. This kind of mirror selfie is actually the most common type of photo users send when they do the virtual try-on. And here we immediately see a glitch. What kind of glitch? With Nano Banana 1, you can already tell what's wrong just by looking at it. This is actually the most common issue with Banana 1. It doesn't clearly understand where it should remove the original clothes, where it should replace them, and where it just layers the new outfit on top. At first glance, it kind of looks okay, but let's be honest, nobody actually wears clothes like this. Meanwhile, Nano Banana 2 handled it much better. You can see the folds, the fabric behavior. Maybe the cut is slightly different here, but overall the vibe is right, and the result looks natural. Now let's look at photos like this. By the way, when users are trying on something simple, like a t-shirt, the generation can actually work pretty well even with photos like these. This is also a very common case. Users upload a photo like this, see that the result isn't great, and then upload another one. You just need to be prepared for that. But if you're doing virtual try-ons for accessories, jewelry, glasses, hats, then a face photo actually works totally fine. Jewelry and accessories usually generate well from face shots. But in this case, we were specifically testing dresses. Sometimes, by the way, the content even gets blocked. I included an example of that here as well. And look at this one. Nano Banana 2 didn't understand at all how to put the outfit on. Nano Banana 1 at least tried to replace the clothes. It kind of understood what to change, even though it didn't remove everything correctly. But Nano Banana 2 here generated a completely different person in a totally different interior. So what's the point I'm making? If you're using UppiWay for virtual try-ons in Instagram, whether you're working with clients or you're a fashion brand, sooner or later you will face this reality. Users will upload bad photos. That's just how it is. They send whatever they have, and you need to be ready for that. Then we moved on to a swimsuit. And here's the thing. Nano Banana 1 didn't generate it at all. Nano Banana 2 didn't generate it either. No matter how many times I tried, with different photos and different inputs, the swimsuit just wouldn't generate. What's interesting is that this model used to generate swimsuits before. So maybe Google is changing something on their side, tweaking safety rules or filters. Hard to say. But the takeaway is simple. If you're a lingerie brand or a swimwear brand, you will inevitably run into these kinds of issues. There's no way around it. Next, we tested this garment. With Nano Banana 1, it didn't remove the sleeves, but overall, it still captured the general style pretty well. Nano Banana 2, in my opinion, handled it much better, although even here there were still some issues. By the way, when you do try-ons directly inside Gemini, you'll notice much stricter limitations. Google applies tighter safety and sensitivity rules inside the Gemini interface to prevent generating certain types of content. When we work through the API, the flow is different. A user sends a photo, we send it via the API to Google, Google processes it, and then sends the result back, which we deliver to the user in Instagram. With the API, Google allows us to lower the sensitivity threshold a bit. Because of that, some things that won't generate in Gemini will generate via the API. This is a pretty common situation, at least at the time I'm recording this video. And what's funny is that just 1 month earlier, it was the opposite. Gemini worked better, and the API was more restrictive. AI changes very fast. So the main thing you need to understand is not memorizing rules, but understanding how AI behaves in general. On this model, you can really see the differences. For example, here it took the texture from one image, but the cut and shape from another. And here, you can see it changed some details. We had white edges before, and here it actually added branding, while in this version it didn't. So Nano Banana 2 is clearly much better at handling these details. Even in cases like this, the result is still acceptable. When a user receives an image like this, they understand that the feature works, and they'll usually just upload another photo. Yes, you'll have to pay for another generation, but overall that's fine. What's interesting is that Nano Banana 2 even understood that it needed to remove this outer layer completely. It removed the sweater and generated a really clean result. Then we had another client working with dresses. This was Nano Banana 1. This was the reference image. Nano Banana 1 did put the dress on correctly, but it heavily changed the fabric texture. If you look closely, this is basically a different dress. Nano Banana 2 handled it much better. You can clearly see that it's the exact same dress. And that's exactly why Nano Banana 2 is more expensive. Next, we had another case. I'll show you the context. We had a store that reached out to us with this dress. This one is tricky. Not because of the design, but because it's hard to generate. Why? Because it's semi-transparent. You can see areas with opacity and transparency, and anything that gets close to lingerie usually causes problems. So how did I handle this? I generated the dress on a mannequin first, and then I explicitly told the model to remove transparency in sensitive areas, around the chest and the hips. Once I did that, Nano Banana 2 was able to apply the dress to the user image pretty well. Let's take a closer look at the result. So overall, yes, of course there are still issues here. This is a difficult dress, no doubt about it. But in general, the overall vibe is still there, and the idea comes through. Even Nano Banana 1 managed to render it. But we can clearly see the old familiar problem. Sometimes it doesn't understand where it needs to remove existing clothing and where it should replace it. With Nano Banana 2, this issue happens much more rarely. From my personal experience, Nano Banana 2 makes mistakes maybe 5 times less often. That's why I honestly think that Nano Banana 3 or 4 will generate results almost perfectly. Now, what else did we have here? We had this reference with a swimsuit. By the way, this swimsuit wouldn't generate in Gemini at all, but it did generate through the API, through code. And this is exactly the classic Nano Banana 1 issue I mentioned earlier. Nano Banana 2 handled it very well here. But still, with swimwear, you should expect occasional problems. Sometimes the model will just refuse and say, I won't generate this because it's a swimsuit. What's interesting is that just a month ago, swimsuits were generating perfectly fine without any issues. And now, suddenly, they started failing more often. That's just how it is. Google keeps changing things internally. But I do believe they'll fix this sooner or later. And once they do, swimwear will work normally again. Overall, Nano Banana 2 is already a solid option for virtual try-ons. And I'm pretty sure that in 6 months, Nano Banana 3 or 4 will be absolutely amazing. So that's a quick overview. If you want to set up online try-on with UppiWay, just go ahead, register, and configure it. We also have a separate detailed video on the channel showing how to do that step by step. See you soon. Bye.